Warning, this video will contain spoilers for Deltarune Chapters 3 and 4. Watch at your own risk. Hello, people of the internet, my name is Atlas, and I am back again with another episode of my Minecraft Let's Play, where I'm just going to be talking about a bunch of stuff, mostly Deltarune, to be honest. That's really the only thing I've got planned to talk about, but I'm sure I'll go off script. Well, I don't have a script, but, go off script figuratively at some point. But yeah, after the new chapters, I just makes sense to talk about it, and I think this is the best way to do it, like, get my main thoughts out in one video. And also, I called that episode 1 for a reason, it makes sense to make another one of these at some point. I will say, you may have noticed, I have nothing in my inventory. That's because when I was setting up for this, when I was on another window for my recording software, I was killed. So, I don't have anything. Of course, I don't think that's a huge deal here because I sort of hardly had anything to begin with last playthrough. Last episode, most of my time was just spent running around in a boat on ice. Oh, that was lag, okay. But, so it's not a huge deal or anything. The whole point of this isn't to, be good at the game anyway, it's talk and stuff like that. So that's what we're gonna do. So let's see, where do we even start out, right? I guess talking about it and how it relates to the videos that I've made so far makes sense. So I guess we'll start out with my first one, which is probably the least notable to talk about. Well, aside from the video that I basically have no reason to talk about, which I'll get to that in a minute, but let's talk about my microphone video. So, what is there to say there? Well, mic is very obviously not Chris's phone at this point. Funnily enough, Chris's phone did end up gaining some importance in this chapter, but it was very much not through being Mike. Mike is... we don't really know who Mike is. I've seen some people say he's like a joke character. I don't agree with that for sure. But I don't think, I don't think we know who Mike is right now. Obviously, there's the Mike minigame that Toby added with the different mics, which are based on fan interpretations. And my immediate reaction to that makes me want to say, well, those interpretations are probably wrong, right? But there's so much, cat and friend stuff in that section, compared to the others, that I almost don't even want to rule out Cat Mike just yet, it's possible that it isn't Cat Mike, but it's not something I want to definitively rule out. There's also the whole microphone, a real microphone thing at the end. I've seen some people say that it's a joke, and I mean, it might be, but to be honest, during my playthrough, I'd assumed that we were sort of meant to see that as Mike, or a sign of the real Mike, whoever that is. I don't know, I guess that's really something we're going to have to wait and see, all things considered. But I guess in that video, I also talked about Friend some, and I stated Friend would be an endgame character, and I mean... that could be somewhat true. We're over halfway through the game at this point. And Friend has played a relatively minor role so far. He has, it has appeared in chapters 3 and 4. 4, it has a very small, hidden appearance somewhere. And 3, it has a few, pretty notable appearances, with it looking like Endogeny in the very beginning, and then appearing in ERAM, or Aram. I don't know how to pronounce it exactly. It's Mare backwards. Not like Mare, as in Mare Carol Holiday, but Mare as in Nightmare. So, I mean, there's the... I assume... I think my guess regarding ERAM, or Aram, is that it's meant to represent the night. It's just sort of... That's the vibe I get with it, and, it helps you fight the night, that sort of thing, kind of resembles the night. So that's what I would assume is going on there. It's... as the pixelated version of Chris represents Chris, the pixelated version of Aram represents the knight. So I guess when it comes, there's pocket parallel theory too. So I don't think there's anything that like technically completely debunks that at this point. If anything, we've gotten content that does sort of lean into the idea of rules being a parallel of the Fun Gang, since he tries to form a battle thruple, assuming that's what the Fun Gang is. But otherwise, we didn't get any new members, sadly. You can maybe make a comment about how Starwalker replaces rules in the thruple, being like, with their counterparts, Noelle replacing Rousey in a way. They have similar capabilities in battle, being able to pacify and heal. But as far as that goes, we didn't get any new Pocket Pal members, sadly. That obviously doesn't mean we couldn't get any more in the future, but right now we don't have any. I guess not necessarily related to a theory. I was glad to see Rules and Lancer get some more content. They pretty much have nothing in Chapter 4, but they have quite a bit more in Chapter 3 than they 2 that it helps. It makes up for it. It makes it less noticeable. Of course, also helped by the fact that they released together, So I guess, let's see, what else is there to talk about here? Tenna was very different than I think most people thought. He ended up being a pretty good guy, all things considered, Obviously, he's flawed, but he's not, like, super evil or anything. He's way better than Spamton. And I guess in relation to that, we figured out why there's beef between those two and what happened. Seems like the deal that Tenna got Spamton to sign, whether Spamton knew the exact details of the contract or not, it seems like signing that contract is whatever made the person on the other end of the phone go away. Whether that was Gaster or Friend or whatever. I'm inclined to think it's Gaster because I'm not sure if Friend is the phone type, but who knows. Okay, so my next Deltarune theory, I'm pretty sure, was my Chapter 4 theory. And that is pretty much completely irrelevant. Like, it became almost entirely irrelevant as soon as we got the trailer, which confirmed the church. And what do you know? It was a church. Obviously, the church ended up being under some pretty different circumstances than most people thought. Caddy and Jockeyton are nowhere to be found. It's way after the service at night. In fact, the only Lightners here are the Fun Gang and kind of Old Man, which, I like, for me, like most, was a standout of Chapter 4. And honestly, Chapter 4 is definitely my favorite chapter, I think. Whoa! So far, in Deltarune. So I think Rousey and Susie play a big part in that as well. They were really good, these chapters. Rousey in Chapter 4 especially was like such a major improvement. Like Rousey wasn't bad before, don't get me wrong. But I felt like a lot of stuff in Chapter 2 was like payoff. Well, sorry, the opposite. Setup for his character. And Chapter 4 finally gave us some of that payoff. So, that was nice to see. Susie was also great. And, that's another thing. The Fun Gang's bond as a whole was just so fantastic, these new chapters. Like, they really, you can feel how close they are. And you just love to see it. We got the... I guess before, if I'm going to talk about that, I might as well talk about... it's not in the direct order there, but honestly it makes sense because there's a bit less to talk there than there is about my other theory that I have left to talk about. Let's talk about the night. So, my last video before this one and before Deltarune came out was a video of me discussing the different night candidates and who I thought, well, just generally discussing, well, what are their issues, what are the good things about them, and who do I think is going to be the knight in the end. Was I right? Well, not completely. You know, ultimately my best guess at the end of that video was the vessel, and the vessel is almost 100% not the knight. But my second and third guess were Des and Carol, and those are pretty much the only candidates anyone believes now. So that's good. If you want to know where I stand on that, I still stand very firmly that Des is the knight at this point. Um, and I'm pretty confident in that. I feel like the Des connections are a lot stronger than the Carol connections. Carol obviously has the katana, which is one of the big ones, and is talking to Chris on the phone, at least for sure at the end of the weird route. We don't know 100% sure if it's her in the normal route or in the other calls, because technically, you know, it could be that the knight is saying when the knight said, well, it could be that whoever is saying "I'll be right there" is not referring to the holiday house, but instead the chapter for Dark World at the church. Now, I don't really know about that. Right now, I feel like my opinion is that Carol is working with or monitoring the knight in some way, and is working with Chris in regards to that. Uh, but you know that's all stuff that could change. I think it's interesting that Des had so many parallels with both Azrael and Kara. I think that's pretty cool. Azrael and Kara are very interesting in the ways that they are parallel to Des. So, you know, good stuff there. Carol looks very different than I think most people thought, but also, I mean, I've seen some pretty like accurate fan prediction designs in my day. So, like, it's very Queen inspired. Obviously, is the main thing, and she almost has like a Dark World Noel hair color, which is interesting. And I think I've seen similar things to that in the past. It's just no one really guessed the Grinch of it all. If you get what I'm saying there. Rudy showed up at the church, which I did record my playthrough, and I plan on uploading it in some form. But you'll hear me say there that I did honestly kind of think Rudy would show up at the church. I know a lot of people thought he would be lying, and I do understand why. But to me, I figured it was just he was lying just about being up to going there, you know, instead of going there himself. I guess there's sort of the question of, well, where does all that vessel stuff that I mentioned in that night video go? And I think the vessel will appear in the future, but maybe it's like the Chapter 6 weird, Chapter 6 secret boss or something. Could also play a role in the story. I think there's always a chance that we end up, you know, possessing them instead of Chris, as a sort of solution to things. As far as the other Knight candidates go, of course, Chris Knight ended up being wrong. I do feel bad for the Chris Knights Chris Knight believers, because it really was a case of, for a split second there, the game makes you think, oh, it is Chris Knight, and then completely pulls the rug under you minutes later, and it's just, no, it is absolutely confirmed not Chris Knight. More than any other Knight candidate has been deconfirmed, basically. I didn't really talk about it much on this channel, but I talk about it some on like Twitter and stuff. I never really totally bought the idea that Caddy and Jockington were going to be in a Dark World, at least not until near the end of the wait for the new chapters. And that turns out that they weren't, which makes me think that my thoughts on the whole specifications for which characters have talk sprites and voice blips may have some merit to it. Of course, in these chapters we got two exceptions to those rules, being Tenna and Jackenstein. Basically, the rules are essentially, if a character has both a talk sprite and voice blips, then they're probably important. The only potential exceptions there are the characters that originate from Undertale, who will automatically get that for consistency reasons. Though at this point, it's seeming like even that may not be an issue. Like they might all be somewhat important. Um, and then if a character has no talk sprites but voice flips, then they are probably the secret boss. And the probably there is because of those new characters I mentioned. I'll get to that in a bit. And then if the character has a talk sprite but no voice flips, they are important in a way. They're sort of like notable characters, but they're not necessarily main story important characters, if you get what I'm saying here. But those exceptions that I mentioned, Tenna and Jackenstein, in my opinion, the reason they are exceptions is simply because they don't need talk sprites. Their faces are big enough that they allow them to express in a way that basically nullifies the need for a talk sprite. So I think that's what's going on there. So I guess now it's probably a good time to talk about the elephant in the room here, and that is Flower King is pretty much confirmed to be Chapter 5. I will say it was very validating to see all the stuff for it, and to see people, finally believing it after all this time. Believing it since literally day 1 of Chapter 2. So, obviously, the main pieces of evidence there are the Gerson line, which mentions Chapter 5 is a field of gold and pink, and mentions a fiery jealousy. The vast garden gets destroyed in an inferno of jealousy, I think is what it says. Which is very, very obviously hinting at Asgore. And Asgore in general, even before either the other one is the prophecy, which shows Asgore in a UT-like attire, similar to Toriel's Dark World form, and it says the Flower Man is trapped in an asylum, which is on its own, even moving away from purely Flower King evidence, is a very interesting line, I must say. But even before I saw either of those, I was pretty confident in this theory still, obviously from before, but also the fact that Asgore appeared in the main story quite a lot this time around. And, oh yeah, I forgot to mention the other piece of evidence, which is Asgore having a black shard, which is notably not a shadow crystal. I see a lot of people thinking it is, understandably, mind you, because if you did not beat the knight, you would probably assume it would be a shadow crystal, but the black shard is actually what the weapon you get from the knight is called. It's a piece of their sword. And if you look at the asset for the whole room, Asgore appears to be looking at a black sword or katana. I don't know how the mayor has it, but it is notably different from the knight's sword. Like, the handle placement is different, and it's not nearly as big. So, that's another reason I'm not really sold on Carol as the knight. Also, yeah, another, very interesting thing now that I think a lot of people are talking about more is the fact that Friend is probably going to be a pretty big player in the Chapter 5 Dark World. With the mentions of pink and gold, mimicking Friend's eyes and the prophecies in Chapter 4, referencing Friend, and the fact that Asgore matches the type of person Friend would get involved with to a T, which I don't think is very good. And what I think is even worse is the fact that in Chapters 3 and 4, if you don't recruit everyone now, characters literally die because of it. And Asgore does not exactly have the best track record for dying because you weren't nice to people. So I'm getting kind of worried for him in regards to the next chapters. But, there's only time will tell. It's possible that it'll just be him, burning the flower darkeners, which, also wouldn't be great. But, probably better than him dying. So, yeah. All in all, it's pretty much I'd say a 50-50 on theories as far as everything goes. And really, I'd say, 2 out of 3. Because, to be honest, the Chapter 4 video wasn't really a theory video. as much as my others were. So, you know, that's not so bad. Well, actually, no, it was not a 2 out of... what am I saying? Because I did not say Des was the knight in that knight video. But, you know, I put her at number 2, so, you know, kind of a win there, maybe. Really, I'm just happy that the Flower King video aged so well. And I actually wanted to say thank you guys for your support on that, too, especially since the chapter released. Honestly, even before then, it was my most viewed video. But since the chapter release, it's gotten like 20,000 views, and that's just so huge. I never expected so soon to be getting views like that, and I'm so glad you guys are enjoying the content, really. I, of course, plan to continue making content as time goes on, both Deltarune content, which I'm sure you'll be seeing quite a bit more of in the near future. I am a little busy right now in real life, but I'm going to try to keep this up because I really do want to pursue it more. I absolutely love doing it, and so I want to keep it alive. And I really can't do that without your guys' help. And so, yeah, honestly, I think for now, for today, I'm going to leave that off here. I know I've actually completely gone back in progress as far as this playthrough goes, but ain't that just the way, you know? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed at least listening to me. I know a lot of people actually did enjoy the classic Minecraft feel last time of my playthrough. And I'm glad to hear that. You know, I enjoy doing this type of thing. It's fun. It reminds me of the videos I'd watched when I was a kid. And so, I think I'm gonna leave it there. There we go. I hope you guys enjoyed. It's been fun. I'll be making more videos soon. I might go and make a video covering Flower King a bit more, maybe. And so, yeah. Thank you all for watching. Like and subscribe if you like the video or are just looking forward to more content from me in the future. And always remember, drink water, remember to floss, and don't forget, the impossible is possible. All you gotta do is make it so. Good night.